Hi guys, so I was always born a Muslim, of course, and I was brought up in a moderately Muslim family. But I was always, around people of different faiths and backgrounds, like Christians and Jews and Hindus and even atheists. And I always used to wonder, of course, I believed in my faith and that our religion and lifestyle, is true. But I always used to wonder, of course, people of different faiths, they also believe that their, religion is true and that they're living the correct lifestyle. So what made us, so confident in our religion and we were so sure that this was the truth? So like for instance, like how do we know for sure, as Muslims, that the words written in the Quran are the words of God and not the words of man? Astaghfirullah yani. So, I always used to think, and think for myself and really think logically. And I didn't want to, follow my religion blindly and just like follow whatever, I was brought up to follow. So I encourage a lot of people to do the same because we are all brought up in kind of this biased environment, as children, and we were being feeded, this information, and we're just told, this is our faith and this is what we believe, and we just go with it. So like a lot of times, we're Muslim because our father is Muslim, or we're Christian because our father is Christian, or Jewish because the father is Jewish. So, we have to kind of bring ourselves out or free ourselves from this kind of, biased environment, whether whatever religion you are in, and try to, think for yourselves and really think, use the brain. Like, everyone has their own brain, to think logically and critically and use reason. So I just wanted, to kind of state the truth for myself. And, my faith at that time was really weak. It was like, I was a Muslim by name, but I didn't really kind of have that, strong faith because, like, I think when your faith is weak, you're kind of more susceptible to, falling into sin and, going against what your religion preaches. So you, you need to have like some sort of backbone or some sort of, kind of, you know, um, something that really you could rely on, and that your faith is coming from that source. So that your iman or your faith is really strong. So I was really trying to seek the truth for myself. And after I, started to, learn a lot more and reading into the Quran a lot, I, came across the scientific miracles that are written in the Quran and how they are in line with modern day science. And that really amazed me, as a biology student, that really was what really influenced me the most. And I think people are different, in like how they are influenced and, convinced in different ways. People are convinced with logic. Some people are convinced with fear. Some people, are convinced that like they're so scared like that their wrongdoings or their deeds, they'll be punished for them and like that in the afterlife in hell. Some people are more inclined toward emotion. The words that they're reading is like it just touches their heart, and they really feel it, and they're connected with the words, and they know in their heart that this is the truth. And some people, they want to see, they seek reward in the hereafter for their good doings and good deeds in this life. They want to see that, in heaven, them being rewarded for it. But for me, the number one thing that really worked for me the most is logic, in using my intellect. So when I came across, the scientific miracles, that was really what really made me, okay, this has to be from God. There's no way, you know what I mean? So the first, scientific miracle that I came across was human embryology in the Quran, which is the development of the baby in the mother's womb. And this is what I want to talk to you guys about today. So to begin, the study of embryology goes back to the time of Aristotle in the 4th century BC. And he actually did experiments on chick embryos, and he actually thought that the chick embryo was similar to that of the human embryo. And he concluded that the embryo was created from something called menstrual blood or menstrual fluid, and that the embryo inside the mother's womb, it just simply grew, and the mother's body just simply acted as like an incubator for that growing embryo. And he actually did mention the idea of stages, but he didn't give any description to the stages. And he never mentioned anything about the sperm cell or the spermatozoa. And it wasn't until the 17th century when Leeuwenhoek invented the microscope that we were actually able to visualize the sperm cell under the microscope. But because like the magnification was really low, you couldn't see much detail of that sperm cell. Now I want to show you guys an image of what they saw, or what they imagined was inside of a sperm cell during that time. So as you guys could see on the screen, this is an image of a sperm cell, and what they thought was at the head or inside of that sperm cell was a miniature human being, and they thought that like that miniature human being, once it's inside of the female, that it simply was already in fully developed in human form, but it simply just grew in size with time. So that just tells you the type of knowledge that they had during that time. And it wasn't until the 20th century when we were actually able to have clear and distinct stages of embryological development with descriptions of those stages. First verse that I want to show you guys on the screen. But before I show you guys the verse, I just want you guys to know the time period that this was written in, the verse was written in, before you see it. So here's the verse. The verse says, "It is He who has created you in diverse stages." And this is from Surah Nuh, verse 14. So here it is saying, indeed, there are stages in development of the uterus, which was an idea that wasn't really kind of believed at that time. Now, the next verse that I want to show you guys says, "He makes you in the wombs of your mothers in stages, one after another, in 3 veils of darkness." And this is from Surah Az-Zumr, verse 6. So there was like discussion throughout centuries about what this 3 veils of darkness actually means. But we now know that, or we could have an idea of what this phrase actually means, this 3 veils of darkness. And in the next image I want to show you guys, it shows what this 3 veils of darkness actually means. The first veil of darkness is the anterior abdominal wall of the female. And the second is the uterine wall, or the endometrium. And the third is the amniochorionic membrane. So these are different membranes that encapsulate or cover the embryo while it is being developed. So the term 3 veils of darkness actually is a correct description, and it is in tandem of contemporary embryological observation. Now, this is the main verse that really amazed me. This, as a biology student who took, embryology in anatomy class, this is, kind of convinced me the most, because it shows you the clear-cut stages of the embryonic development, and it's in line with modern day stages. So the next verse states as follows: "We, God, created man from a quintessence of clay. We then placed him as a nutfa in a place of settlement firmly fixed. Then we made the drop into a alaqa, leech-like structure, and then we changed the alaqa into a mudgha, a chewed-like substance. Then we made out of that mudgha idam, which is the Arabic term for bones. Then we clothed the bones with lahm, which means muscle. Then we caused him to grow and come into being and attain the definitive human form. So blessed be God, the best to create." And this is from Surah Al-Mu'minun, verses 12 to 14. So now we have 3 main stages. The first is the nutfa stage, or the drop stage, and this is in comparison to the modern day germinal stage. The second stage is the khalaq stage, or shaping stage, which is similar to that of the embryonic stage. And the third stage and final stage is the nash'a stage, or growth stage, and that is similar to the modern day fetal stage. Now, throughout history, they weren't really sure whether it was the male or the female that created the embryo. But I want to show you guys a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you don't know, a hadith is an authenticated saying of the Prophet, and it is provided through a chain of narration going back to the life of the Prophet. And to show you the hadith on the screen, it says, so the hadith states, "It was narrated that Abdullah said, A Jew passed by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was speaking to his companions. Quraysh said, "O Jew, this man claims that he is a prophet." He, the Jewish man, said, "I shall ask him about something which no one would know except a prophet." So he came and sat down. Then he said, "O Muhammad, of what is man created?" He said, "O Jew, he is created from both, from the water of the man and the water of the woman. The water of the man is thick, from it comes the bones and sinews. And the water of the woman is thin, from it comes the flesh and blood." The Jew stood up and said, "This is what those who came before you said." In another hadith, it states, "The child does not come from all the liquid or semen. And when Allah intends to create anything, nothing can prevent it." So here, this hadith really states that the sperm cell is the one that is, extracted from the semen, and it actually plays the part in fertilization, which is, as we know, is true now in modern day science. So what I want to show you guys next is another verse which states, "Then he, God, made his progeny from a quintessence or sulala of a lowly fluid." And this is from Surah As-Sajda, verse 8. So the Quranic term here for the selection of sperm and ovum is known as sulala, and it means gentle extraction from fluid. And it's now known that both the ovum and the sperm are both gently extracted from their environments in the process of fertilization. The ovum is selected from a long stream of follicular fluid, and one sperm out of millions is selected from the seminal fluid. So the first sperm that touches the membrane of the ovum enters easily. And after that, there's a rapid change that occurs in the membrane of the ovum that, doesn't allow any other sperms to enter. And it only selects that sperm that has entered. And so the term here, sulala, is a perfect word to describe the gentle extraction of both the ovum and the sperm from their environments to be fertilized. Going back to the original verse, which describes the three main stages. The first stage says, "We then placed him as a nutfa, or a drop, in a place of settlement, firmly fixed." So the term "place of settlement, firmly fixed" here actually means implantation, as we know in the terms of modern day science. So this is when the zygote attaches to the endometrium wall and it turns into a blastocyte, and it starts to become sort of like a seed that is planted in the soil. It extracts the nutrients that it needs or requires from the mother's blood, just as a seed would extract nutrients from the soil. So it's very, very similar to that of a seed inside the mother's womb. The next image that I would like to show you guys here, just so we have like an overview of what we're talking about here. Here is an image of the uterus in the female. And as you can see, the middle part is known as the endometrium, and that is what the zygote is attached to and implants to, and where the embryo starts to form. The next image that I would like to show you guys is in what it looks like inside of the endometrium. And as you can see, it looks very similar to what we could see inside in the soil when a seed starts to grow, and it uses the veins to actually absorb the nutrients surrounding it inside the soil. So here the embryo is actually absorbing nutrients from the mother's blood cells and blood veins that are present in the endometrium here. Now going back to the original verse, the next stage, which is known as the khalaq stage, states, "Then we made the drop into a alaka, a leech-like structure." Now, the term alaka here has three main meanings in Arabic. The first meaning is a leech-like structure that we mentioned. And I want to show you guys like an image of what we're talking about here on the screen right now. As you guys can see in this image, the bottom is a human embryo at about 24 to 25 days, and the top is a leech. So as you can see, they were both very, very similar in structure. And the term alaka here is very descriptive to a leech-like structure, as you guys can see in this image. Next definition here is something that clings or attaches. So if you've ever been swimming, you know that these like leeches, they actually attach and cling to your skin. and they actually begin to like suck the blood out of your skin. So this is actually, a believable, description to a leech. So, it's very similar in nature, as like the alaka actually attaches to the uterine wall. The third definition is a blood clot. So I want to show you guys an image of a possibility of what this definition could actually entail on the screen right now. So as you guys can see on the screen, here's an image of a forming embryo in the upper right hand corner. And on the left is actually the yolk sac. And you can see how there's intertwining of blood veins and vessels. And the blood vessels and veins, they actually go through the forming embryo. And we can actually visualize once the embryo is detached from the uterine wall, that it actually exposes, blood vessels and veins, and it shows like a bloody appearance, just like a blood clot would. All three definitions are very valid in that they, compare it to that of a leech. But the most believed, definition is a leech-like structure, which is the image that I showed to you guys first. So that is the consensus of, it being very similar to a leech in structure. Now going back to the original verse, the next stage within the khalaq stage, it says, and then we change the alaka into a mudgha, a chewed-like substance. What I want to show you guys next is what the term mudgha actually represents. So it is like a chewed-like substance, as you can see in the next in this image, that it looks like something that you put in your mouth, like a gum, and you chewed it up and you put teeth marks in it, and it looks very similar to that of an embryo at 26 days. So the term mudgha here is very, very, kind of encompassing of what, the structure looks like at that stage. So it does look like a chewed-like substance, and like you see the teeth marks there, and it's very descriptive. In the next image, it shows a embryo or a mudgha at that stage, and this is taken with a electron microscope. So as you can see, it very much so looks like a substance that you kind of chewed up in your mouth and spit out or something. So yeah, that's how it looks like. And in the next image, you could see what it actually looks like about at 5 weeks, and it really does resemble like a chewed-like substance at that stage. So now we know actually in osteogenesis that what is known as the ensenchymal bones, they are made from connective tissues that become cartilaginous and then become ossified into bones. And this was like an area of debate for much of history, of whether the bones or the muscles came first. And here the Quran states that the bones came first and then the muscles. So I actually want to tell you, a scholarly article that I read, or a book from the Developmental Approaches in Human Evolution, that was published in 2016 by Professor Julia Buckner from the Department of Anatomy and Cell Biology, and Professor Campbell Rolian in the Department of Comparative Biology at the University of Calgary. So they said that in humans, the signaling for limb and bone development usually precedes that of muscle development, and the cartilage is present prior to muscle formation. They also said that the early tissues that give rise to limbs and bones may provide the positional signaling for subsequent development of soft tissues like that of muscles and fat. Now, what I want to show you guys next is an actual hadith, which states, when 42 nights have passed over the conceptus, God sends an angel to it who shapes it into human form and makes its hearing, sight, skin, muscles, and bones. Then he says, O Lord, is it male or female? And your Lord decides what he wishes, and the angel records it. So here the hadith states that after the 42 days have passed, then the embryo starts to gain, human characteristics, and it starts to look like a human being. And so before that, you couldn't tell the difference between, a human embryo and the embryo of any other animal. And I actually want to show you guys an image of what that looks like on the screen right now. So here you can see an embryo at 41 days. So this embryo, if you put it beside like the embryo of a rabbit at the same time period, you would actually not be able to tell the difference, whether which one is human and which one is the embryo of the rabbit. But as you can see, after that, about around 48 days or 51 days, then you could actually see that it starts to gain human characteristics and human features. And you can actually tell that this is a human embryo. So the hadith here was actually very accurate in telling that we're able to tell, that the embryo is human based on the time frame that he gave when the muscles are formed and the bones are formed. So the next thing I want to show you guys is another verse which states, "Who God created you, made you even and straight, sawak, and then modified you, adalak, in whatever form or surah he wanted. He put you together." And this is from Surah Al-Infitar, verse 7 and 8. As you can see in the next image, you could see that the embryo, starts as like a bent shape, and then over time, when the muscles start to form, it starts to straighten up over time. So the term sawek here is actually very, very accurate in that, like, it changes from a bent position to a more straight position over time. So going back to the original verse, the last stage is known as the Nash'a stage, or the modern day fetal stage. It states, "We caused him to grow and come into being and attain the definitive human form. So blessed be God, the best to create." Here, Nash'a means in Arabic to initiate, to grow and develop, and to rise and increase. So, the Nash'a stage, or the modern day fetal stage, it actually shows that the embryo, grows very rapidly during this period of time. And, I want to show you guys in the next image of what, this growth really does look like. And it's very different from the early stages, as in this, in this stage, there is rapid growth and development that is occurring. So I would like to show you guys like the image now. So as you guys can see from this image, the early stages from 9 to 12 weeks, there is very little development and growth that is occurring. But after the 12 weeks, there is very rapid growth and development that is occurring. And so the term nasha'a here is very, very descriptive of the very fast development of the organ system and all the other, systems that are occurring to create that final, embryo in the final stages until for full term. So the next hadith that I would like to share with you guys states as follows. "In every one of you, all components of your creation are collected together in your mother's wombs by 40 days. And in that is a alaka like that. Then in that is a mudgha like that. Then God sends an angel ordered with 4 instructions. He is told to record his deeds, his provision, whether he will be miserable or happy. And then the spirit is breathed into him and the soul is acquired." Now, the concept of the soul is actually something that modern day science hasn't been able to tackle. Because of course, the soul is out of, the realm of experimental science. But in this hadith, it states that after 40 days and after a slight delay, the soul is acquired. And we now know that around that period, that is when the embryo starts to have, voluntary movement. And it starts to have, very calculated, reflexes and movement. And it is hypothesized by scientists around that time that is when the soul is acquired. And you could actually see, in the ultrasound, image of a baby like sucking its thumb on the ultrasound. So this hadith is very, very accurate in saying that it is around that time, after the 40 days, that is when the soul is acquired. Now, in Arabic, the words thumma and fa both mean then, but they have 2 different variations in meaning. Fa means, there is a short delay in transition from one stage to the next. So each, stage is happening right after the other, very quickly. While thumma means that there is a long delay between each stage. There is, quite a bit of time before one stage goes into the next. So the word fa, if you go back to the original verse, it is used when going from the alaka to mudgha stage, the mudgha to adam stage, and from the adam to lahm stage. So the alaka stage lasts until around 24 days, and the mudgha stage begins around the 26th day, lasting until the 6th week. then changes directly into the Adam stage in the beginning of the 7th week. And then the Lahm stage begins in the 8th week, right after the Adam stage, since that's when like the muscles start to form. So in between these stages, the transition between each one is very, very quickly. But thumma is used between the three main stages, from the nutfa stage into the khalaq stage, and then the khalaq stage into the nash'a stage. So, and we now know that between those modern day germinal and embryonic stages, there's a long delay, and between the embryonic and fetal stage, there is also a long delay. So these terms are very, very accurate in telling of the time period between which these stages are happening. So that was really very interesting to me. Now, there was a famous embryologist by the name of Dr. Keith Moore from the University of Toronto. He was invited to a university in Saudi Arabia, the King Abdul Aziz University, and he was given these verses in front of him, and he was asked to, to provide what he thought of these verses and what they mean. And after quite consideration, he actually noted that these verses are very true to modern day descriptions of the embryological development. And he actually noted that these verses couldn't have came from anyone but God. And I want to show you guys the clip of him saying this in the screen.
Muhammad could not have known these facts about human development in the 7th century because most of them were not discovered until the 20th century. Muslims and others are justified in concluding that these facts could only have been revealed to Muhammad by the one who knows all about us, not only about how we developed, but how we live and function.
So I want to leave you guys with this last verse, and it states as follows. And those who have been given knowledge realize that what has been sent down to you from your Lord is the truth, and it guides to the path of the exalted in might, worthy of all praise. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.